LinkedIn family. Happy World Waters Day. I am Heather Antoinette Kolar, aka Heather H2O, and we're so excited to have you with us today. I am so excited to have the one and only Amy Graves. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for asking me to be a guest. I appreciate it because this is a
Yes.
something that's near and dear to my heart too. So
I know, right? We met each other, we'll talk a little bit while we give folks a couple of minutes to join. We met over a year ago, and
right.
I'll never forget. It was so amazing because for those of you who don't know, we hold two very big seats in this world, at least, right? So we both have our own marketing agencies. And
Yeah.
so we were actually collaborating to be complementary together, and then we discovered the big passions we have in our lives, which we're going to talk a lot about today. And there was just so much synergies with clean water and the amazing work that Amy does. So it's just so good to finally be able to do some work together, especially for World Water Day. So it's
Yeah.
exciting. And it's
Absolutely.
Friday. We're going to be rained out up here in the Northeast, but that's okay. A day of rest is always good for the soul.
It's going to be such a hard day of sunshine here in California.
And so we have the whole nation covered from West Coast to East Coast, Cali to New York and New Jersey and everything in between. So
Yep.
this is
Although
awesome.
yeah, we do get rain tomorrow and at least our reservoirs are overflowing. We're in a
Yes.
good spot.
Good
So,
spot, right? Yeah. I have enjoyed many a weeks and days in California. So I want you to be well taken care of.
yeah.
So without further ado, we are going to jump into World Water Day 2024. We're just going to check and make sure our LinkedIn connection is live. Sometimes it takes a little bit for the live to start streaming, but we're going to trust LinkedIn. I know, like last week or a couple of weeks ago, actually, LinkedIn was down, right? So
Yep.
hopefully, LinkedIn, you're not down today and everything is going to go smoothly. But we will have this recording to share out to folks. So, again, my name is Heather Antoinette Kolar, affectionately known as Heather H2O. You'll learn how I got that. And we welcome you all to everything you need to know about your drinking water. So it's going to be a jam packed session today. We're not going to go a super long time. We really are going to get all of this information in for you in a short period of time. So, what we would like to know is who's on the line, where are you checking in from, what kind of work do you do? Because we have had over almost 70 folks RSVP for this event. So, we're really excited about that. Where are you checking in from? What kind of work do you do? What has um, activated you to be interested in this event today? And so, as we come into World Water Day, I have one big question for you. Can you name one thing in your entire life that has not been touched by chemicals? Can you name one thing in your entire life that has not been touched by chemicals? Right? And so when I ask this question, Amy, thousands of audiences that I've spoken to, you can usually hear a pin drop because the answer is always no. We live in such a chemically inundated world. It's almost impossible to think of one thing that just one thing, right? In your entire life that has not been touched by chemicals. And why is this so important, right? It seems rhetorical, but the reality is we all know water is life, right? Today's audience, we specifically invited people who work in the medical field. We invited people who work in health and wellness. We invited people who are clean water advocates, right? Dr. Leslie Kasanoff, absolutely not, right? Thank you so much. It's almost impossible. I believe it's impossible, but I remain an optimist to find one thing in your life that has not been touched by chemical. So we all know water is life, but the fact of the matter is we're scared that our water is going to make us sick or even worse, kill us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of truth and risk in that. So today is all about understanding water, how we get it. The one thing that is magnificent about living in the United States is, as you can see here, right? We actually have water. We have water that is delivered to us all the time. But what is water in 2024? Water is a commodity, right? You may have heard of water barons. There's people who are trying to buy up all the water in the world so that they can control it, people and organizations. But the one thing that's great about the United States is that we have water that's delivered 24/7, 365. The problem is there's an insane cost for making that happen. And the cost is not so much monetary because it's cheap to get water at the tap. That's a very good thing, right, Amy? It's cheap to get the water at the tap. But the cost of it is the chemicals that are put into the water to treat it, right? And we're talking about water treatment plants are officially hazardous material sites because the chemicals that go in our water are chlorine, sometimes ammonia, right? In New Jersey and many states, they put a combination of chlorine and ammonia that's called chloramine. And I remember as a young girl, right? And when I first started to get chores, my grandmother was like, do not mix the chlorine and the ammonia. That is a no go because when they combine, like they could knock you out. They form this gas and you're passed out, and it's just not a good deal. But actually, chloramine, the combination of chlorine and ammonia, is put in our water. Lye is put in our water to raise the pH of the water because the water is so acidic, right? Chlorine, chloramine are put in the water to kill bacteria and viruses. And then you have corrosion control. And if there's anyone out there that heard of Flint, right? If you could just let us know if you ever heard of the crisis in Flint, Michigan. So part of the biggest problem was not only was the water in Flint changed to a very toxic source, but the corrosion control was not adjusted. And what corrosion control means that it's what's put in the water to keep the lead from leaching out of the pipes. So the first thing I think of is if that's being put in the water to keep the lead from leaching, what is it going to do to our internal pipes, right? So again, there's the dichotomy. It's a beautiful thing to have water on demand, but what's actually in the water when it's coming out of the pipes? So that talks a little bit about what water is in 2024. And that's before, right? That's before. That's just talking about how the water is treated and delivered. We're not even talking about environmental contaminants, right? Or water main breaks. I grew up in the fantastic city of New York City, right? Where did you grow up, Amy?
Superior, Wisconsin, on the shores of the biggest freshwater lake in the world.
In the world, right? That sounds fantastic. For me, we were told all the time New York City has the best water. New York City has the best water. And I'll give two thumbs up to all that New York City does to protect the reservoirs, which are like 100 miles away from the city. But by the time that water gets to your tap in New York City, it's gone through 7,000 miles of underground infrastructure, which is over 100 years old, right? Over 100 years old. And the city has over 500 water main breaks a year because everything is so old and there's so much traffic, and so every time there's a water main break there's a contamination, right? And so what happens? The water shoots up out of the ground and then it comes back down. And these are things that we kind of know in the back of our head, but then we talk about things like environmental contamination, right? Is there anyone out there that has heard of forever chemicals or
Yep.
possibly Camp Lejeune, right? Camp Lejeune is like the first time the federal government is actually being sued for knowing these chemicals are in our water. And it's huge, right? Camp Lejeune is in Virginia, it's a military base. People have gotten treacherously sick with all kinds of cancers. The unfortunate thing, these chemicals like trichloroethylene and benzene, they're not just in Camp Lejeune. They're most of the country, right? And so I'm trying to scare you, but not scare you, right? Because we all kind of know, right? We all kind of know in the back of our head, and Amy's going to get to what we do because we know. Um, these forever chemicals, there were, right? So growing up, I have some age on me, right? So growing up, it's all been lead. That's all we would hear about, right? And a boil water advisory. What's a boil water advisory? A boil water advisory happens when there is an excess keyword, excess of bacteria and viruses in your water. And so, growing up, that's all we really heard about. It was like if there's a lead problem or if there's a bacteria and virus problem, right? Amy, can you relate?
Yep, yep. I grew up in an area where we had a benzene spill and it affected our
Wow.
water supply and we had to boil our water.
Right? But the problem is you can't boil those things out of your water.
Mm-mm.
If it's not bacteria and viruses, you can't boil it. It's either gonna reform, it's gonna combust and reform, right? Basic chemistry, or it's gonna metals get more concentrated.
Yeah,
But forever chemicals are now on this list, this new list with the government, PFOA, fluorofluoral chemicals, right? PFOA, PFOS, and letters are being sent out. So we're actually trending to doing more about our water quality. So we have environmental contamination. You can also add in there pesticides and herbicides and VOCs. We can't think of one thing in our life that hasn't been touched by a chemical. And
and
water
there's
is
a
used
reason.
to make and clean everything, right? And
Yeah,
the other thing I like people to think about is water moves, right? So as water's moving, your water
yeah,
quality is constantly changing. These are just some things that I'd like people to talk about and think about, because the more we think about them in a rational sense, the more sense it makes. Okay.
yeah.
So, what we're going to do right now, Amy, because your work is so steeped in all of this, I want you to share your personal story. Like you said, you grew up in Wisconsin, right? So we
Yeah,
want to share your story from farm girl to disabled to being an
yeah,
advocate. Tell us a little bit about that and how, what's been your process, your journey.
yeah. So mid 70s baby, you and I are the same age.
Yes.
My dad was a farmhand. He wanted to be a farmer his whole life, couldn't afford it. So we traveled upper Minnesota and North Dakota for the first 4 years of my parents' marriage. They lived in a camper, 70s Prowler, bright green and orange, like 70s. And we lived next to the fields that were getting sprayed with pesticides and the fertilizers and all those chemicals that are involved in that, right? The core basis of what makes that up. It altered my DNA. That set me on a path where my lymphatic system never fully formed. Um, I'm highly susceptible to anything made from corn, and we now live in a world that everything is made from corn. So I
Everything.
can't buy food in a grocery store. I go to a farmer's market and I have to ask the organic farmers what they do, because there's still things they do that add things that are corn based to my food. So I have to find like very specific things in order to stay alive. Um, that led me to opening Hidden Consumers Consulting. I know I've been a marketing person. I focus on those websites. They're your biggest marketing tool. But I have such a deep understanding of how our foods are bioengineered and why plastics are bad and why we need to like separate ourselves from the world of plastics, especially when it comes to water. That I've taken it and it's now my company. It's what I focus on, but I also do advocacy work then with different within different organizations to bring more
Right.
awareness.
And so we were discussing actually bottled water, right? Plastic bottled water, because that's what people do. That's what I did. I remember I was in the late 90s. I had the privilege of studying in Ghana, West Africa at the University of Cape Coast. And someone gave me a really tiny book, right? And it was called How to Use Water as Your Medicine. And that book helped me to understand how I'm going to get my daily requirement of water, right? So, for those of
Yep,
you, we have health and wellness people here today. We have people in the medical profession, people who are plumbers. Are there any plumbers that are here with us today, right? It's your jobs to help people get clean water and have water. That book, How to Use Water as Your Medicine, helped me to understand how to get my daily intake, right? How
yeah,
to get a strategy to drink nearly a gallon of water a day. Um, but my solution was to go grab, I remember taking 2 gallons of water in each hand and walking up my five-story walk up in the Bronx, and I thought, and this was like every other day. So I thought I was really doing something great, which, I
right.
was getting my water. But tell us a little bit about, many of you have seen it, but what's the most recent study that's been done by NIH of all? on what's going on with plastic bottled water.
Okay, so the first thing we got to do is we need to know and have people in chat tell us if they drink from a plastic bottle that they bought in store or a plastic or one of those more of the non-stainless steel water bottles that are reusable while we
Right.
talk about this
How do
story.
you
So
get
we need
your
to know.
water, right? We're all
Yep,
people that are in the space, health and wellness, medical, clean water advocates. How do you get your water? How are you
yep,
getting your water these days? We would really love to hear that.
yep.
Um,
Here's why it's, and this is why I bring it up. It's because of that NIH study is plastics are made to be food grade, which for me, that means they're made from corn. And as soon as, and they start biodegrading almost immediately. So if you've, I'm sure we've all heard the stories of plastic being found in human stomachs. It comes down to a lot of it is your bottled water.
And
So
this
think
is
about it this
something that
way.
we're sharing, right? That
Yep,
NIH report, nearly 240,000 tiny pieces of plastics are found in a 1 liter bottle of water. That's a
yep,
lot of plastic, and 90% of these plastics were nanoplastics, right?
yep.
That's 10 to 100 times more than what people were reporting only a year ago.
Do we need that at all in our body? No.
Let's talk about what
We at no
plastics
level
do,
need
right?
plastic in
Plastics
our body.
suffocate.
Well, and let's talk about, the problem with these nanoplastics is they also they mimic estrogen and other hormones in our bodies. So I literally had a conversation this week with someone new I met in my networking group. His wife was suffering from severe postpartum depression. None of the treatments were working. They went as far as to do some research. They pulled out, they completely changed out her diet and they removed all plastics. And suddenly she was able to manage and gets on track to moving forward with her postpartum depression. That is how, you've gone through a pregnancy, your hormones are here and there, they're everywhere. And then
Everywhere.
you're drinking water from a plastic bottle and it's all having an effect, and the research is just now catching up to those effects that we're seeing, that we've had our human experience around, but we didn't have the research to back it up until now.
Until now, right? And that goes back to the knowledge that we all have that something's not quite right with our water. Look, it's
Yeah.
phenomenal. I always talk about when we talk about drinking water, we have to talk about the infrastructure that we have. It's massive, it's dependable. Um there's so much
Mhm.
that goes into delivering water 24/7 365. Imagine if you went to your faucet and there was no water. No matter how many questions you have about water, right? You went to
Yep.
flush the toilet, there wasn't water there. Most people don't know that there is a rush hour every single day between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. where everybody and their mama, like I like to say, everybody and their mama goes to the bathroom to get ready for the day. The utilities have to work extremely hard to make sure that ample water is there, right? Or else we know we'd be looking at chaos if there's not water there. I see that a chat came in, right? We drink
Yep,
out of
I drink out of
stainless
stainless
steel.
steel. It's all stainless
Absolutely.
steel in my world, or glass.
Hello, Gayatri. So good to see you, miss. Right? Between time heat, lots of degradation, right? Yeah, people keep plastic
Yep.
bottles in their car. Let's just talk about that, right? So let me finish my thought because I get so excited when we talk about water. So, having the infrastructure there is one thing. We're going to talk about what to do because I hope you understand bottled water is not the answer. Not only, you going to the store, using that gas energy and time to go to the store, energy and money to go pick it up and put it in your car. Then you have to bring it home. Then you have to store it and then you run out of it, right? It doesn't make sense. There is a better way. But what about it even getting to you? People always talk about, oh, Fiji water is so great. I say, okay, what if the water was actually bottled in Fiji? How did it get into your hand, right? It went across ocean liner, which was baking in the sun,
Yep.
right? Then it got to the port. Then it got from the port to the warehouse distribution site. Then it went to the store. Then it made it into the place where you could pick it up. And then you did everything we just talked about. We need
But
water every single day of our lives, right? So, what is the answer? right? We've talked about a few things. We've talked about the privilege of having water. And remember, let's frame it out. Water has always been an issue. Before the treatment and chlorination of water around the turn of the century, 1900, not this not this millennia, right? The 1900s, getting old up in the house. In the 1900s, people died of dysentery and cholera, and getting clean water has been an issue since the beginning of time. Now, what are we
Yeah.
going to do in 2024? So we know that the water is chemically treated. We know that there's environmental pollution, and we know we need water every single day of our lives. And Amy, you talked a bit about your story, but personally, it has affected you, right?
Yeah.
You are not disabled as far as being a human, but your mobility is affected,
Yeah.
your health is affected, right? Can you
Yep.
share a little bit about what being so exposed to pesticides and plastics and corn has done to you?
Yeah. So I have a variety of conditions. Most of my stuff is, well, one is still rare, one is no longer rare. So
Yes, you
I've got,
shared that. I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah, yeah. So I've got Wartenberg's migratory neuropathy syndrome. I mimic all the conditions of MS. It's a genetic issue. The other issue I have is complex regional pain syndrome. At the time, type 1 of the CRPS was average diagnosis age was 60, and it was something that was an onset as you were getting on in the older stages of your life. Today, the average age is 15. I was diagnosed in my 20s. So I was on the cusp there of bringing down that average age. But again, it all goes back to what's in our world, how everything is bioengineered, it's overprocessed, and it's having a dramatic effect on our actual DNA in our bodies.
Yes. So you are, you're at this end of the spectrum with the effects of what happens when we're exposed. But when you were diagnosed, the average age was 60, 20 years ago, let's say.
Yep.
Now, the average age of diagnosis is 15. So
Yeah.
that is a very staggering statistic
For
that
20 years.
it went from rare having these symptoms that mimic MS, having this be something that's a rare disease that's usually found at age 60, to it being a not rare disease diagnosed at age 15, right? And so that brings us to the solution, right? Because there has to be a solution in things. And so I'll talk a little bit about myself after we share this, but the solution is going to be what's called an NSF. I'm sorry, we got to go back to the solution. The solution is what's called an NSF certified point of use water filtration system. So, what is NSF? I'll share their site real quick. We'll make sure you have this as a resource. But NSF is a nonprofit public health entity that has been around since 1944, and they certify all kinds of public health um, products. And one of them that they're really known for are their water filtration systems. So I'm hoping we all agree. All right, bottle, even if you're still drinking it, it's not the answer. But what do I do? So I have been a consultant for the past 10 years, actually 12 years. I got started in the water space in 2009, just really understanding what water is in 2009 at that time. And since then, I've grown into a water consultant. I work with government, schools, nonprofits, communities to understand what's going on with our water and how to actually remediate it, to fix it, and make sure people have filtration 24/7, 365. So NSF is the gold standard for companies and institutions that are required to test and provide clean water. Specifically, this is the military, these are hospitals, and these are schools. Hospitals sometimes, but definitely schools and the military. And so I'll share this link for NSF, but outside of schools and hospitals and the military, it's the wild, wild west when it comes to trying to get clean water. And it's laughable in a way, right? But it's not, because people go out And fortunately, we're all trending towards
Yeah.
sustainability. So people are actually looking for water filtration systems, but outside of schools, outside of the military, outside of the state of California, which you're fortunate to live in right now. We're all fortunate, right? But the state of
Yeah.
California says if you're going to market a product that says we take out bacteria and viruses, if you buy this product you will remove lead from your water and your family will be protected. If you buy this product you will remove benzene and tetrachloroethylene. They're the only ones who actually make sure that the product does what it says it's going to do. So for us, nationwide, we want to make sure that families, schools, businesses, people everywhere, right? Our little fur babies, not only our kids, but our fur babies all have access to certifiably clean water. And
Yeah.
NSF is the authority that you have to look for. And there's different standards that they have. They have standard 42. That standard's going to make sure that water is free of things that you can smell, taste, and see. So this is the aesthetics of it. It's going to take out chlorine, dust, rust, sediment. Good start. That's what your usual pitcher filters are going to do if it has any certification whatsoever. That's what a pitcher is generally going to do. Then you move on to health effects. These are things that have been studied for decades, like lead, like PFOS, the forever chemicals, like benzene, like 24D, right? Anybody heard of Roundup and all of these chemicals, like arsenic? I wish we had some plumbers that were here live with us because most people don't know the piping in our infrastructure used to be lined with asbestos,
Yep.
right? And so
Yep.
a lot of that stuff has not been removed.
Yeah.
Some of it has, but all of it has not. Officially, I get the word on this kind of thing. Okay, these are the dark conversations with people who've been in the water space for eons, and they're like, "Nope, we still haven't gotten it all out." And
Oh,
so that's standard 53. Things that we know if they're in our water in a certain amount, we will get sick.
yeah.
Then you have P231. This is the only certification for bacteria and viruses, and there's only one product on the whole planet that is certified by NSF to take it out. Then you have 401. 401 standard 401 is going to take out pharmaceuticals, pesticides, right? And trust me, if NSF goes through the process of creating certifications for these chemicals, it means they're in the water. They're not creating certifications and putting all the scientific resources to certify chemicals that are not in the water. Ibuprofen's in the water. Atenol, which is like one of the
Yeah.
top heart medicines, is in the water. Okay. This stuff, drugs and medications. Yes, Dr. Kasanov, you know it. They are in the water. And
Yeah.
so we have this fantastic system where we actually can go to the faucet, right? And we
Yeah.
can get water out. What do we need to do to make sure the water is clean, helpful, and safe? And we don't have to revert to expensive, costly practices of going to get bottled water that's not good for our health, right? It's terrible for the environment, very costly. Well, the solution, as recommended by the CDC and by the EPA, right, and the Health and Human Services, right, is to get what's called a point of use, meaning right where you're going to use the water at your kitchen sink, at your faucet. Our mission, right? Clean Water Champions mission is to get an NSF certified point of use system on every faucet and fountain on the planet. Every faucet and fountain on the planet. That is the solution that is not only going to ensure we all get clean, healthy water 24/7, 365, but we also save money, right? Why waste money? Why waste time? And we increase sustainability so much. No more
Yeah.
plastic bottles, right? The only
Yep.
time you really need plastic water bottles. Amy and I laugh out for that all the time. We actually call it plastic water because that's what it is. But we'll stick with plastic bottled water. The only time you really need it is when you don't have water coming out of your tap, right? And unfortunately, We've seen in Jackson, Mississippi in the last couple of years that happened. It happens, right? So that's when bottled water is that resource that you need, that emergency resource. You should attach the word emergency to bottled water.
The
And
nice
so,
thing,
go
there
ahead.
are at least more glass bottles coming out. So if it is an emergency, you should be able to buy glass bottled water.
Yeah. That would be great, right? But fortunately, we most of us don't face true emergencies like that all the time.
Yep. Yep.
Um and so Amy, I wanted to talk about this real quick. I get a lot of questions about alkaline water. A lot of people have questions about alkaline water. And what I'll say about this, and I would love to hear your thoughts about this, Dr. Kasanoff. Um, Alkaline water, truly ionized water, right? We're not talking about bottled water that basically has baking soda in it, reverse osmosis water with baking soda. That's what most bottled water is, right? Because you can make that at home with some real clean water. But when we talk about ionized water, and you can buy an ionizer, a machine that will actually electrocute your water, add on another electron, make the molecules super small so that they get into your cell wall through something that's called an aquapore. I could talk about this for days, right? That's called an aquapore that pulls the water into the cell. If your source water is not clean, if you are hooking an ionizer up to a tap, which most people do, um, you're not good. It's going to be worse for you because now you're getting the contaminants, the chlorine, the lye, the whatever's in your water. You're getting it into your cell walls faster, and so they can be fantastic systems to use occasionally. Sidebar and disclosure, I have used it if I had a little bit too much wine the night before, and I need to get rehydrated really fast. But trust and believe that my water is first purified before it goes into an ionizer. Um, we don't need to have you know an alkalized body is best gotten through our foods, right? Having alkaline water can be a benefit, and having very acidic water, which the ionizers do produce, can be a benefit as well. They're actually sanitize it creates sanitized water that you can use outside of chemicals to actually sanitize surfaces and things in your home, in your restaurant. There's a lot of uses for it, but it has a place. What we need every day is clean, healthy, safe, neutral drinking water for our bodies, right?
And for everybody,
For
because it,
everybody. And so what we would like to do now, we have two events that are coming up. If this has tickled your fancy, whet your appetite, you'd like to know more, we are going to have a clean water champion cohort that will be starting in the next month. We're going to share the link in the chat. It's here. We'll share it in the LinkedIn chat, and everyone who RSVP'd will also get a follow up email. We invite you to find out more, to increase your expertise, to help your community, and to grow your practices, your businesses, however. However you work, it's a great way to become an expert, an authority in the field. um, I absolutely love it. The appetite for wisdom and knowledge is here. Like I said, I work with schools, I work as a consultant. I see you clapping your hands. Yes, neutral, but not deionized. Absolutely. And so, we're going to share this. I just put the we're going to share the link in the chat on LinkedIn, and then we're also going to shoot the cohort information out to you in an email. And Amy, you also have a fantastic event that's coming up. Why don't you tell the people about it?
yeah, April 3rd, it's reading, what is it? Hidden in plain sight, reading the ingredient labels for improved health. So if you're looking to learn more about what's really in your food and what bioengineered food is, but you also want to know the 100 different names of sugar and the 53 different names of sodium, I'm going to be giving them out. So I'm going to help you do better grocery shopping. So April 3rd, LinkedIn event. It will be in a Zoom workshop. We're going to talk through what you eat, what the bioengineered ingredients are. How does that qualify with everyone who's so scared of like all this chemicals in our food and things like that? Really, it goes back to bioengineered food and the basis. And I can tell you some information about GMO corn and how you eat it every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all of these ingredients, as we've discussed today, make their way into our water.
Yep.
And, Amy is that example of a severe reaction that has affected your whole life, right? And again, to emphasize, when you were a young woman, it was a rare disease, not that you're not a young woman still, right? When you were a younger
I can
woman,
look
it
at
was a rare disease. It was a rare disease, and the average diagnosis age was 60. Today,
yeah,
it's not a rare disease, and the average diagnosis age is 15. So,
yeah,
people, we see a lot trending here. Both Amy and I are here to help you gain expertise in a niche and very important area of health and wellness, of sustainability, of just being that force of authority in your own space. So we thank you for joining us today. If you have joined us from Amy's audience, please connect with me on LinkedIn, Heather A. Kolar. I also run the Heather A. Kolar Marketing Agency, which was actually born from me wanting to keep the clean water champion movement going through the pandemic. My corporate experience has always been in marketing and business development. And if you have joined from my audience, please be sure to connect with Amy Graves, the hidden consumer expert. So, thank you, everybody. Happy World Water Day. Please, if you're watching this live or recorded, let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much to Gayatri and Dr. Kasanoff for joining us today and leaving all of your comments and your feedback. And we really hope this makes a difference. We look forward to seeing you in the near future. Be well, everybody.